I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to this public meeting of the Peel District School Board. As you are able, please stand with us for the land acknowledgement and our national anthem.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que
nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississaugas de la
Première Nation de Credit.
Thank you, everyone. Just before we start the agenda items, I would like to share with everyone who's here. Normally, there's a superintendent in every one of these seats, but we've had some placement decisions that have been made, and each of those superintendents who would be in those seats is now on their telephone somewhere calling candidates about the placement changes within our board. So we would appreciate that. You might be looking at, wow, where are all those people? But that's where they are. So before we move to approve the agenda, Trustees Green and Marchant have sent their regrets for tonight's meeting. We have some amendments. Trustees will recall from the blue sheets at your desk to our agenda. 6.1A is a retirements addendum. 9.7 is the 2019 development charges bylaw. This replaces page 79 from our original package, and this page has the ministry's approval of our EDC's bylaw, which we received today from the ministry. 12.1 is the OPSPA Connects e-newsletter for May 27th. Trustee Crocker, will you move the agenda as amended? Thank you. Trustee Andrews, will you second this? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? All in favor of the amended agenda? Thank you. Carried. 1.1 is a special presentation by students and staff of North Park Secondary School regarding Asian Heritage Month. I'd like to do a little introduction just before we call our guests up. Asian Heritage Month is a time to celebrate the many achievements and contributions of all Asian Canadians who throughout history have done so much to make Canada the culturally diverse, compassionate, and prosperous country we know today. Here at the board office, our celebrations began with a beautiful display of artwork that you may have seen out in the atrium on your way in tonight. If you haven't already had the chance, please take a look at the paintings, collages, and drawings created by our very own Peel students. Student artwork also contributed to this year's Asian Heritage Month poster, which was distributed to all Peel schools to be displayed in a prominent area. This month, we held our annual Spotlight on Asian Heritage events at the board office on May the 8th and 9th, where over 500 students and teachers attended to learn more about the rich cultural traditions and contributions of Asian Canadians. Students and staff participated in a keynote and interactive workshop presentations led by Peel staff. Schools across Peel are celebrating Asian Heritage Month in their communities. Today, we're pleased to have a special presentation by staff and students of North Park Secondary School. Please join me in welcoming North Park teacher Matura Kulandirlingam, Palak Guman, Divleen Ruprai, Divnur Ruprai, who will all tell us a bit about Asian Heritage Month activities at their school. You can come to the microphone and welcome to the Peel District School Board.
Thank you.
Main office.
And this is the microphone.
That is a microphone you would use, yes.
Okay.
You can fold it a little closer to you if you like, if it would
Okay,
work.
perfect.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Miss Kalandra Lingam, and I'm an English teacher at North Park Secondary School. For Asian Heritage Month, I had the opportunity to collaborate with my colleagues and to many students at my school, and together we organized many events to celebrate Asian Heritage Month. Today, my students will elaborate a little bit more about the different events that we had.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Palak, and one of the first ways that North Park Secondary School celebrated Asian Heritage Month is the Asian Heritage community came up with a beautiful display, as you can see on the screen, representing Asian heritage, and this included pictures, artifacts, clothes, fabric, and also some literature created by Asian Canadian writers. And this was located right in the Commons, which was right in the middle of the school. So when teachers and students came in the morning, they got to see this beautiful display and what all the Asian Heritage Month entailed for May.
So, henna. So henna designs have originated back for many centuries, and traditionally it was used in Indian culture. So in Indian culture, it represents joy and beauty, and it's traditionally done on brides, and also it has been adapted by many other cultures, such as Morocco, which often paint their doors with henna to bring prosperity and chase away evil. So at North Park, we brought this event to life for 3 days.
Another event we had at North Park was the Taste of Asia event. The purpose of this event was to bring a wide variety of Asian dishes to our school. We collaborated with Culture Club to show different foods from many different cultures to help students learn about their peers and bring everyone closer together. The events consisted of food and information about other cultures as well as countries such as the Middle East and Africa.
Another event that the North Park Secondary hosted is, as the co-president of Sikh Student Association, I was very proud to host this event along with the team of the Sikh Student Association members, and this was an annual Turban Up event that has been happening for the past 4 years in North Park Secondary School, so for the whole time that I was in North Park. And this event is extremely joyful and a lot of students enjoy this event because it allows them an opportunity to tie a turban on their head to get a feeling of how their turban is, how it feels, and also it gives them an opportunity to learn more about Sikhism, because throughout the event there was little pamphlets and brochures being handed out to the students so they can learn more about Sikhism. And along at the same time there was some food and music, and there was samosas, so I'm pretty sure everybody loves samosas, so the students definitely enjoy that. And yeah, this is one of my favorite events, and I hope North Park continues this years to come.
As part of the Asian Heritage Month celebration, we collaborated with the Arts Council and had a diya painting session in which North Park students had the opportunity to paint diyas. So diyas are clay lamps often lit in Diwali, which is also known as the Festival of Lights, to welcome Goddess Lakshmi or to celebrate Ram's safe return from the defeat of Ravan. Sikhs also use diyas to celebrate the release of Guru Gobind Singh Ji on this day. Diyas have been a part of the South Asian culture for many, many generations and are symbolic of hope, goodness, and positivity. Therefore, we wanted our peers to experience this as well.
Now, one of my favorite parts of Asian Heritage Month definitely had to be the Spirit Days. And this Spirit Days, basically, we allowed students to wear their cultural clothing and celebrate their culture. And these Spirit Days were celebrated 2 times in the month. First one being on the Turban Up event, like I discussed before, and also a Spirit Day that just happened yesterday at our school, which was at the Asian Heritage Assembly. That will be explained further in this presentation. But this definitely had to be one of my favorite parts because the whole school looked like a rainbow because everybody was wearing their favorite suits, favorite cultural clothing, and I was really excited because I got to see my friends' cultural clothing and I kind of got to show off my favorite ones, so it got me excited to go to school on these certain days.
Okay, so we concluded our month of celebrations with an assembly, and the purpose of the assembly was to showcase different dance forms from China as well as India. This gave our students at North Park the opportunity to see folk dances from China and different classical dance forms from India, such as Garba, Bhangra, Bharatanatyam, and something newer, which is part of southern India, called Tapanguttu. The whole school truly enjoyed the experience, and they got to learn a little bit more about the history of different parts of Asia.
So although this event was a success, we would like to do many other events, and this would include showcasing more of the music and style. So as we can see that there is the harmonium, tabla, and sitar that are traditional instruments used in classical music for shabads, kirtan, etc. And it's used in gurdwaras and many other holy places in India and in the middle in Asia, as long as many other cultural dances, etc. that will help to bring North Park together. We would also like to bring Rangoli because it is really symbolic as it's a sign of prosperity and good luck. And it's just a great way of helping maybe the Arts Council and other students that would like to volunteer and use beans and different colored beans, etc. that put this floral design together that all resembles our school.
Okay, so to conclude, I'd like to thank the Peel District School Board for giving us this opportunity to come and share North Park's celebration of Asian heritage. And we hope everybody has a wonderful night, although it looks quite long. Okay, have a great day or great night.
Well, let's say thank you. If you just stay at the microphone for a minute, please. Just stay for a second. We're going to say our thank you to you for sharing the rich cultural experience that you have had at your school and sharing that with us. And you've clearly done some work and given your time to help us learn a bit more about what happens at the school level. We're here at the board level much of the time, but we do get to our schools as well and get to enjoy exactly what you have just shown us. But you have given us your time, and I want to make sure that I say this right, Miss Kulandirlingam.
Yes.
And Palak,
Yes.
and Divleen, and Divnur.
Yes.
On behalf of the Peel District School Board of Trustees, thank you for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you, it was our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're moving to special presentation 1.2, which is a presentation by Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Peel. We're just shifting some slides, and we'll welcome an introduction from Jim Ben Buskirk, who is our board's chief social worker. And I know he's introducing Sherry, but we'll leave that rest of that to Jim.
Thank you, and good evening. So 15 years ago, this board, maybe not this board, but the board, made a decision to support in-school mentoring by providing staff who volunteered an hour of time a week where they could go to a school and spend an hour with one of our students in a mentoring capacity. Each year we recruit new mentors, and I know that not all mentors are school board employees, but I know that the board does provide many mentors to the program. And so each year, Sherry Lynn Ledanchuk, the president and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Peel, comes to bring some updates on some of the work they've been doing, and they do terrific work in all of our schools that they're involved with, and to thank the board for the support that they've provided. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Sherry Lynn Ledanchuk. Thank you.
Welcome, Sherlyn, again. Good to see you.
Wonderful to see you, Chair Cameron, and hello, Director Joshua. It's nice to see you too, trustees. It's wonderful to be here. I always love to spread a little mentoring everywhere I go, so it's wonderful to be here and just to provide an update to the school board about what we are doing regarding mentoring within the Peel District School Board. I wanted just to start by thanking our Peel District School Board Advisory Committee that helps us navigate our mentoring programs throughout the school board. Jim Van Busker, of course, who you met, is part of that advisory committee. And I'd also like to acknowledge Bill McGregor, who's with us tonight, who also helps and sits on that committee with us, as well as several others. Patricia Dawes, who's not here tonight, but she helps us in that capacity as well. So just wanted to acknowledge that before I begin. I also bring a Peel District School Board mentor with me this evening who will share some of her experiences with us. And also our casework staff, Beverly Manikoff, is with us as well, who's come. So I just wanted to highlight who's with us this evening. The first quote comes from one of our newer programs that we have worked on over the last couple of years with the school board. Many of you have probably already heard about our Girl Girls program, which is a program which is for girls in grades 7 and 8. We got some different funding to focus that and refocus that, I think is the better way to put it, with newcomer girls in grade 7 and 8. And so that was a quote from one of the teachers who had seen the outcome of the program in her school. As Jim talked about in the introduction, we are doing employee-based mentoring with the Peel District School Board, and this is our 15th year. And I am proud to say that you are #1 employee mentor here in the region of Peel. So thank you very much for supporting that, giving back to your own students, and really embracing the spirit of what mentoring is all about. Our partnership, however, with the Peel District School Board goes for 23 years. So we've been working with the school board to deliver quality mentoring programs throughout your school system for 23 years. Right now, we have 31 active Peel District School Board employee mentors, and 16 of those are new mentors in 2018-2019. So I really wanted to highlight that. You will see, and one of the action items I would ask this evening is that you support and encourage your friends, your neighbors, even yourself, to think about being a mentor within the school board. Director Joshua will be getting a letter that we'll be asking him to circulate on our behalf, to kind of put the word out that this is something that this school board endorses. Mentors are really important. Of course, we always need mentors, and so we really use May and the beginning of June as our opportunity to kind of reach out and see if we can recruit some new mentors. So that's what that's all about. Just in terms of some highlights of our programming, during the last year, we supported 775 children and youth throughout the Peel District School Board in 10 of our school-based programs. Some of them are highlighted below with some of the numbers. So since we've began our partnership with you, we've really flourished and blossomed in our mentoring initiatives throughout the school board, using both one-to-one and group modalities to be able to offer mentoring in different ways to the students within the school system. So that slide just gives you an indication of kind of the breadth of what we do and the creative ways that we try to bring mentoring to every child within your school board who needs it. Something new that happened this year was the Pama Project, and this was looking at using art to kind of work on expression and work on sharing experience in terms of their immigration to Canada for some of the students in their experience of what it means to be Black within the region of Peel, and really looked at bringing the creative part to mentorship. And we're really proud to have partnered with Pama and have these wonderful displays of art are on display in Pama up in Brampton until the first week in September. So if you have an opportunity sometime over the summer to buzz in there and see some of the work that some of your schools were involved in, just want to invite you to do that. There's some really, really creative mediums, and it was a really creative, comprehensive and really collaborative project. So just wanted to highlight that as some of the unique ways we can bring mentoring into some of the maybe non-traditional ways that we've done it, so certainly using art. These are some testimonials that I always love to share because there's nothing more powerful than hearing directly from the actual people who are also all being mentored or actually are the mentors. So really talking about their lived and first-hand experience about what it means to have a mentor and what it means to be a mentor. And so without further ado, I'm going to ask Jasmine to come up and share a little bit with you about her own experience. Jasmine is a first-year mentor with us, so she has some kind of new experience to share, and I'm thanking Jasmine very much for taking her time out tonight to come and share with you.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm honored to speak to the program tonight. So this is my first year participating in the in-school mentoring program with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I decided to become a mentor because I really feel that everybody should have somebody in their life that they're able to turn to for advice or guidance, someone who's safe and a non-judgmental person, especially children, because this is such a defining moment in their lives, really figuring out who they are, who they want to be, and how to get there. So this was my way of giving back to the community and contributing in that perspective. Zach and I were first matched in November of 2018, so it's been a few months. I can't really speak to the changes in his life or at school because I didn't know Zach before. He's always been very polite and respectful with me from the beginning, but I can definitely speak to the changes I've seen in our relationship from November till now. Zach initially was very shy, very hesitant to speak. I would be the one who would carry on the conversation, but lately, the last few months, I've noticed that he wants to talk more. He's actually asked me for advice on how to deal with things that are happening in his life, whether it be conflict with students or whether it be something that he's not happy with at home. Recently, I think one of the biggest moments in our relationship was when he had a conflict with a student and he talked to me about it. He was quite upset. I guess it just happened right before a mentoring session. He was quite upset. We talked about it. We talked about possible solutions. And he ended up asking me to stay so that he could talk to the teacher about the situation to resolve it. And his teacher was very proud of him. She talked to me after. She said that hasn't happened in the past. And it really made me feel that he trusts me as somebody who's there in his corner for him. So my role here at the board, I work at CBO. So everything we do here is for student success, and I'm not in the classroom. I'm not frontline staff, so sometimes it's easy to lose that perspective. And this program, it allows me to see that what we're doing, it does have an impact on students. And specifically what I'm doing has an impact on Zach every week. So I'm very proud to be in the program. And I thank you for listening to me tonight.
Wow, Jasmine, thank you. That's a very powerful example of sharing the value of this program in the lives of young people. Just hearing that you're there at a moment when your mentee needed someone to talk to is a testament of the value of the program, because if you were not, or if we didn't have the program, where would your mentee go for help? So what a special time. Thank you so much for sharing. I too was an in-school mentor for 4 years. I worked with a little guy from grade 5, 6, 7, and 8. Sadly, we had to say goodbye at grade 8 because the program it's not that cool to have a mentor going into high school, I don't think. So, but I do remember the feeling that this feels awkward. Why do I feel so good about myself helping this little guy when really my job is to come in and just help him? But the staff always helped us in training sessions to understand it's okay to feel good about the wonderful work you do and the giving that you are offering other people as well. So thank you for joining us and giving us your night here. Thank you, Sherry Lynn, and thank you, Beverly, for joining us. I don't know what else to say. I believe so much in this program. The power of an hour, as I recall, Sherry Lynn, the power of an hour. And I remember reading about it in our local newspaper where somebody was actually working with the brother of the little guy that I ended up signing up for. And when I said to my wife, one day I'm going to do this program when our daughters don't need me anymore, sadly, they didn't need me anymore a couple of years later, and then I joined in. So I encourage everyone as well, think about if you have 60 minutes a week that you can give a child, you will make a difference. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We'll see you next year, Sherry Lynn.
Yes, for sure. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Jasmine, for sharing your story. Thank you to everyone who partners with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Peel to, make this community better for our children and youth. So thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Well done. And thank you, Jim, as well, for giving your night up. And enjoy the evening. You're welcome to stay, of course. Okay. Okay. Item number 2 on the agenda, trustees, is a declaration of conflict of interest. Are there any to declare? Seeing none, moving to section 3, which is the minutes. Section 3.1 is the minutes of the Special Education Advisory Committee meeting on April the 16th. 3.2 is the minutes of the Physical Planning and Building Committee on May the 7th. 3.5 is the minutes of the regular meeting of the board on May the 14th. Trustee Davies, will you put them on the floor? Thank you. Trustee Benjamin, will you second them? Thank you. They're here for our receipt and approval. Are there any questions or comments about any of these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Carried. Are there any written questions from trustees? Seeing none. Item 5, are there any notices of motion or petitions from trustees? Seeing none. Item 6 is special section for receipt. 6.1 is a list of retirements. 6.1a is the retirements addendum added to the agenda. 6.2 is Crossing Guard Appreciation Day on June the 11th. Trustee B. McDonald, will you move this section for our receipt? Thank you. Trustee DeCroo, will you second it? Excellent, thanks. Are there any comments or questions from anyone? Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Moving to item 9, which is new business. We take these items individually. 9.1 are the recommendations of the Special Education Advisory Committee meeting on April 16th. Trustee K. McDonald, will you move this? Thank you. Vice Chair Lawton, will you second this? There are no recommendations, and this is here for our receipt. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. 9.5 are the recommendations of the Special Education Advisory Committee on May 21st. There are 3 recommendations regarding the gifted identification and placement process that are here for our approval. Vice Chair Lawton, will you move these recommendations? And the additional reports that are also here for our receipt. Trustee Davis, will you second these? I know you were at that meeting as well. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? Trustee Lawton.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Cameron, I would be, as I said, I was very happy to put this unanimous recommendation from SEAC on the floor. And I would like to thank in particular Barb Sear, who is here. She's the author of the motion and has been working with the ABC group for many, many years. This motion addresses a longstanding concern with regard to the identification and placement of gifted students. And we look forward to the reports that we will receive, as noted in the motion, in September, November, and December of the next school year. Thanks to Superintendent Moynihan and Superintendent Uniacke for their guidance and support. I'm very happy to have this on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee K. McDonald.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just want to echo Trustee Lawton's sentiments also. And I know, Barb, even from before I became a trustee, you have been working tirelessly. I'd just like to thank you for that. And I'm particularly excited about the recommendation number 4 in your motion, because I can see this blending in very well with the work that the board is doing on our kids that have a high, although I'm not sure if it's high or low, but the scale on the social vulnerability index. So thank you for this, and thank you to our trustees for supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from trustees on this item? All in favor? Carried. 9.6 is a recommended amendment to the Peel District School Board bylaws. This is a revised terms of reference that changes what was an automatic assignment of the chair's position on the discipline committee to the vice chair of the board, to now having the discipline committee members elect the committee chair from its members. Trustees will recall that we received written notice of this proposed amendment at our May the 14th board meeting. Vice Chair Lawton, will you move this item? Because it does involve you. And Trustee K. McDonald, will you second this? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? Seeing none, this is really a housekeeping item because we've already put this into practice. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 9.7 is the 2019 Educational Development Charges Bylaw. There are 3 recommendations here for our approval. One of those recommendations is for the board to pass the Education Development Charges Bylaw in the form as we have in our agenda. Recall that we added replacement page number 79 to this bylaw before approving tonight's agenda. And that's because today the board received approval from the ministry for our Education Development Charges Bylaw. Trustee B. McDonald, will you move this? Thank you. Trustee Sohi, will you second this? Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from trustees? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. 9.8 is a notice of motion given by Trustee K. McDonald regarding establishing a student senate. We have the motion on page 97. Trustee McDonald, will you move this item to the floor? Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Yes. And the seconder is Trustee DeCrube, seconder. Trustee McDonald, are you ready to introduce your motion?
I am.
Okay.
So I'm going to read it first.
Sure.
Whereas the Peel District School Board has 35 secondary schools in Peel North and South regions combined, whereas the Peel Students President's Council has more leadership-based initiatives than advocacy-based initiatives and seeks to broaden student representation across Peel, whereas the board seeks student voice from student trustees when making decisions that will affect their education, therefore, be it resolved that the board shall establish a committee called the Student Senate in conjunction with the Peel Students President's Council clause with a mandate to A, have 2 students representatives chosen from every school in each region, B, meet and consult with the student trustees from their region and other senators in matters regarding student voice and affairs at the Peel District School Board in regional meetings, C, promote student voice, transparency, and communication, and D, encourage students to engage in leadership opportunities such as the Peel Students President's Council. So before I begin to speak, first I'd just like to thank Stacy Wilson from the Leadership Development and School Support Services for the countless time, I know she's not here at the moment, that she has spent with our student trustees working on a student senate outline. I'd also like to thank our student trustees for their amazing work in this initiative. So thank you, Trustee Chunkran and Trustee Oris Nedenova for your work. Now, basically, I'm going to read a slightly edited form of a letter that was sent to me by the student trustees. So the Peel District School Board is a large and diverse board, but throughout the 257 schools that span our district, there's one common goal that we all work towards: supporting our students. We all know that students are the lifeblood of our board and the broader Peel region in many different ways. However, a key factor of supporting students that must not be overlooked is supporting their voice. Every day, in every way, we have to work to amplify student voice. As the sole and direct stakeholders that our board serves, students can provide sharp and invaluable critiques if given the agency to do so. And we have seen them when they have advocated with regards to the recent changes in the funding. These critiques will better inform frontline educators in the classroom, as well as senior administrators and trustees, as we work towards implementing the overarching objectives in the board, such as equity and inclusion, safe, positive, healthy climate and well-being, and high expectations for achievement as set out in the Plan for Student Success multi-year strategic plan. A vehicle for amplifying, celebrating, and empowering student voice in our board is far and away through a formal student senate. Through a student senate, students from every corner of our board will have a direct line of communication to the student trustees, providing invaluable frontline insight that will greatly support the work of Peel's elected student representatives. Through this, student senators themselves will have a substantive venue to advocate for concerns and changes in their school community and have a means to provide information to their peers. Furthermore, a student senate will provide an unreplicatable setting for intra-school and inter-school dialogue, which will allow for best practices and innovative ideas to be shared and brought to classrooms across the board. Furthermore, having a student senate provides the board with an excellent sounding board and consultation source by having representatives from geographically diverse and culturally diverse student lens. A student senate also provides a conduit for which youth can get engaged in governance processes, providing an opening for student leadership to flourish in Peel. Currently, the only Peel-wide student organization is the Peel Students President Council. Why we prefer the Student Council, the Student Senate? The latter group focuses on leadership development, whereas the former has the capacity to be a multifaceted representative, board-wide vehicle of student voice. They support the PSPC. This group mainly provides students with networking skills, leadership opportunities in secondary schools, which are very important skills. However, there's currently no student group that is directed towards student advocacy and student governance. Finally, a student senate has long been the method of choice for other comparable boards. Most boards, there are about 25 boards that we have confirmed to date that have student senates. These include the Toronto District School Board, the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board, Ottawa Carleton District School Board, just to name, and our neighbor, the Halton District School Board too, just to name a few. So I would greatly appreciate the support from my colleagues. I am aware that a few trustees received an email regarding this motion being referred to trustee review, but we could deal with this now because like any advisory group, the board traditionally comes up with a terms of reference which comes before the trustees for approval. Our two student trustees, with the guidance of Mrs. Wilson, has invested a lot of time into a preliminary outline. So I'm asking my colleagues to please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll open the floor now for debate and comment from trustees. If you'd like to speak, you could activate your button. Trustee McDonald, B. McDonald.
Yeah, thank you. I think probably all the trustees, I don't want to speak to everyone, obviously, but just for myself, but we all support the Student Senate being created, and I think it's a great evolution of our President's Council into creating a Senate and following in the lines of what Trustee McDonald said, goes towards creating more voice and input from a great stakeholder in our education process. But I would like to defer this motion to a committee, and I'll pass it out for everyone so we can read this as we go along.
So Trustee B. McDonald, are you putting a motion on the floor to refer?
Yes.
Do you have a seconder?
Do I have a seconder?
You need a seconder?
Yes. Will.
Sorry, will Trustee Davies is seconding.
So I'll wait till it all gets out.
Just give us a second till everyone gets their sheet.
So the whole, and I'm not speaking or reading it right now, but I think I as a person of process, I think it's important to create a process to this, and rather than just say we want a student senate, let's just identify what the student senate is. So has everyone got it in their hands? Okay, so we can all read along with me. So I'd like to refer the Student Senate motion to the Trustee Review Committee for trustees and administration to develop the appropriate details for implementing a Student Senate that will include a new policy, if required, an operation procedures or procedures, terms of reference, and constitution to then bring back to the board for approval. So basically, that's the referral, and if you want to speak to it.
That's your motion, so you can speak to it if you want to introduce it any further than that. If not, we'll open the floor for discussion on just the referral.
Yeah, I'll just have a quick intro. I think it's important that when we define what a student senate is, to have actually everything in one place. I think this will expedite the process. There's been some great work, as we've heard from Trustee McDonald and me speaking to the student trustees, that our administration has done a long way, so this process will be sped up. So I think putting it to the Trustee Review Committee will actually bring it quicker to motion, puts it in a process that can bring it back with a policy and other information needed to approve it when applicable and brought to it. I'm open to a friendly amendment as well if you want to put a timeline to when it can come back. But the intent is to be done expeditiously and then returned and approved and created. And once it's created, we have everything in framework, and now the students know that they have something, the framework's ready to go, and we're off to the races with the motion. So that's my referral.
Okay. Thank you. Now we'll open the floor for comment, debate, only on the referral, not on the original motion. So we're only hearing comment on the referral as presented by Trustee B. McDonald. Trustee DeCroo on the referral.
Thank you, Chair Cameron. I would like to first thank my colleague for putting the original motion on the floor. I'm not sure. So I have a question of clarification, and I know the answer to this, but I'd like my colleagues to hear it. If we pass this motion today the way it is, does that mean tomorrow there's a student senate and students go there and they do their own thing, or do we actually still have to there still has to be work that's done before that actually happens?
Okay, so
my understanding from Trustee B. McDonald's motion is that he may be under the impression that if we pass it tonight, there's going to be a student senate tomorrow.
So
is that what happens?
So let's go with one question at a time. Your question is, if the original motion is passed, you're speaking to the referral, remember, right?
No, but I'm trying to figure out the referral.
Okay, so does administration have an answer to what the process is for if the original motion were to pass this evening?
Through Chair Cameron. Can you hear me? Is this working?
Yeah, just a little bit louder.
Okay. So we would need time, obviously, to implement this. I mean, there would have to be a process for electing our members and putting together a structure, framework, staff, representatives, etc. There's no reason it couldn't run next school year. Certainly that, I think, would be the intent to get it up and running.
Thank you very much. So my understanding from that answer is that nothing happens automatically just because we pass a motion here on the board, that staff will take their time to come up with the terms of reference and the processes and all of those things that we always do whenever we have a motion. So I'm not exactly sure what referring this motion to Trustee Review Committee is supposed to accomplish, since we are going to be doing that anyway, other than actually delay. Not expedite the opportunity for students to be able to express their voices in an additional way. I'm absolutely supportive of the motion as it stands, and I encourage my colleagues not to vote for a referral, because it's not going to accomplish anything. We know I know I'm supportive of having a student senate, and I'll speak as to why I'm supportive of having a student senate a little bit later. But referring is useful. This is for my new colleagues especially. Referring is a motion that is useful when you need further information to be able whether you're going to support the intent of the motion or not. if you need to study a motion a bit deeper, but this is not the case. We know we want to have a student senate. Staff are going to put together the information. Just because we pass something up here, it doesn't mean it happens tomorrow. Everything takes time. So this is pretty straightforward. Our students are asking for something, and they're asking for something that is very reasonable and very specific. So I see absolutely no reason for us to call another meeting for the 12 people that are already here to talk about something that we can talk about right now. And staff are going to do their due diligence and follow process as we always do, because we always have to. Nothing happens overnight. Not at this board, because we look at everything very deeply. So I encourage my colleagues not to vote for this referral. It's just another reason to delay it, and I will not be supporting that. I think this is an amazing opportunity for students to engage in leadership, and to be honest, from my perspective, on a personal level, if I did not have the opportunity to engage in all of these leadership opportunities that I've had when I was younger, when I was their age, I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I wouldn't be the person that's sitting right in front of you. I don't know now. It's up to you whether that's a good thing or not, but that's my 2 cents on this thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Have other speakers here? Trustee Davies, to the referral.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the idea as it was presented of a student senate is a wonderful idea, and I'm sure there's no one on here that is against it. However, I'm sure that we all have a slightly different tweak on what we think that is, what it would entail. And so I just wanted more of a framework to understand exactly what I'm voting for, exactly what it would consist of. I understand some background work has been done and all those things. I just wanted it sort of concisely laid out so that we can really look at it, and then we'll know whether it's something that I had in my head that's what it's going to be, or it's something different just before I vote on it. That's all. That's just, there's nothing wrong with the committee review.
Thank you. Trustee Kay McDonald, to the referral.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Not to repeat too much about what my colleague, Trustee DeCrube, said, but I remember when I had the motion on the floor with regards to focused hiring, we referred it to a committee, and at the time the rationale was there were a lot of issues that weren't resolved that we needed to get clarification on, the process, making sure everything was legal. So I'm not sure what the point of referring this to, and I'm not sure the intent of the motion, because as far as I know, not one colleague around the table would be opposed to having students to have a voice. We already know that lots of progressive boards have student senates. The process, you look at, for example, I remember the genesis of PIC. PIC was created and formed before its terms of reference. So by approving my motion, none of the steps listed in Trustee B. McDonald's motion, which is, for example, the new policy, operational procedures, terms of reference, none of these asked for in his motion will be impacted by approving my original motion tonight. Because as a part of the whole process of implementing a committee, there is due process, there is terms of reference, there are operational procedures, norms of meetings, there are a lot of details that are worked out. So I'm not sure the intent of referring the motion to another committee, and I don't see how that could expedite matters, because it's delaying a process, whereas if we get the go-ahead tonight, we could start operationalizing the student senate. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Trustee Chankrian on the referral.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair.
Trustee Oris Nadanova and I would like to express our sentiments that we believe this is an unnecessary referral. We do believe that changes can be made after the motion is passed, and this will prolong the process of having the actual Senate be formed due to the fact that, like Mr. Harmon said, we do need time to actually come together, put together all of the documents needed, as well as the logistics of it after the motion is being passed. We believe that if the referral is to be passed, it would be a failure on our part to the students due to the fact that we have a responsibility to provide our students with a voice, as well as an opportunity to create that voice in itself. And we urge our fellow trustees to please think about this before voting and to work on the changes moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Sohi to the referral.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. I think the students have done an amazing job by bringing all the information that they have sent us through the emails and all different boards that were named that they already have it. We often say that students are leaders for tomorrow, but I say they are leaders of today, and we have seen that when they advocated against the funding cuts. So we really need to have their voice on the table, and as these two amazing trustees will no longer be with us after another one board meeting, and I would really appreciate if we can have their hard work heard now. And of course, as Superintendent Herman said, that there will still be a terms of reference and everything we'll look at after the motion will be passed. And it has been done in the past. So I think it's really important that we really acknowledge the hard work of these two individuals and the voice that they are bringing on our table. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to the referral? Trustee Lawton.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Cameron. I would like to thank our student trustees, Chongkrian and Oris Nadanova, for their dedication to representing all students in Peel. This is not the first issue that they have dealt with in such depth. Their process in supporting documentation is never lacking. We all can learn from you. I do support Trustee McDonald's recommendation to refer the motion because of what I understand to be the proper process. I'm ashamed that much of this discussion has nothing to do with the original thoughts and work that you put into this.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to the motion before we close debate with the mover? Seeing none, would you like to move? Would you like to close debate? Trustee McDonald? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just re-echo how as I started this, I'm all for the Student Senate. I thank the student trustees for the great work, and I support their leadership. I said this is the evolution of our President's Council to now something more informative and provide input as a stakeholder into our education process. So that is not in question. What is questioned really is just process. And I think it follows our due process of putting things to our trustee review committee, where they will, as trustees, administration, come together and put and craft all the necessary things in place so that we as a board can then say yes. And if you read the motion, is to bring it back for approval. It's not squashing it. It's not doing anything to dismantle it. It's, I think, reinforcing it that we need a policy, we need an operating procedure, terms of reference, and there's been some great work done by the student trustees, no doubt about it, and staff. We're just now going to take that, put it in that committee, finalize it, bring it back, approve it, and when we approve it, it's ready to go. You know, it's all in place. Here's everything done. Let's start. And that's what it is all about, just following process. It's nothing about personal, saying something about this or that. It's all just following a due process. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Okay, thank you. So now everyone has had an opportunity to speak to the referral. Only on the referral, trustees, we're going to vote. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the referral as we have it in front of us, raise your hand. Do you count 5? Okay, thank you. All those opposed to the referral as we have in front of us, raise your hand. So it's 5-5 with 2 non-binding votes in opposed. The referral fails because it requires a simple majority, which is it must have 6 out of 10. The referral fails. Thank you, everyone, for the debate. Now we go back to the original motion, which was on the floor, and we'll open that up now for those who have not spoken to the original motion. Trustee Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. So this would appear then to be the best time to make a couple of what I hope are friendly amendments. In the line that begins, therefore be it resolved, I don't think it should be a committee, it's a Senate. So the Senate has committees. I think it should read that the board shall establish a student Senate. And I hope that the board would see that as friendly. In line A, I know in the whereases it specifies secondary schools, but I think in the actual motion, we should see the word secondary before school. So I would insert the word secondary between every and school. I hope that the board would see that as a friendly amendment too. My third question wouldn't be so easily answered. I'm concerned about the word chosen. So chosen could mean that the principal says you and you are on the student senate representing the school. Another school might choose to elect them. I think it should be specified how this Senate is determined. The Senate of Canada right now is appointed. The Senate in the United States is elected. There's nothing inherent in the word Senate to guide us on that one. So I'd like something specific there.
So we need to walk through these because you're proposing multiple friendly amendments to the original. Can we just start at your first one again, please, so everyone could be sure they're on the same page. If everyone looks at page 97, 9.8 is the item. We'll walk through this slowly, one friendly amendment ID at a time. Trustee Crocker, start us with number 1, please. I will.
There we are. So I recommend that in the line which begins, therefore be it resolved, that the sentence continue, that the board shall establish a student senate. So I'm suggesting striking the words committee called the.
You see? So that's establish a student senate.
Correct.
And then continue the sentence. Okay, we all have that, I believe. Go ahead, number 2, sir.
I'm going to make number 2 the third one, actually. I'm recommending to put secondary between every and school in line A. So it would read, have 2 student representatives from every secondary school, assuming that's the purpose. Okay?
Okay, so that's under Part A, have 2 student representatives chosen from every secondary school in each region. Okay,
I don't know what in each region tells us there, but from every secondary school, right?
That may have been each municipality.
Yeah, but why? Yeah. Yeah, because they're not chosen regionally, they're chosen by school, right? So it doesn't matter that the schools in Caledon or Brampton or Mississauga, correct?
Is your friendly amendment to stop at the word school?
In every secondary school.
Right, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And my third point would be, I think this would initiate a discussion. I struggle with chosen. Chosen should say elected or appointed by the principal or whatever the intention is. I would hope elected, but.
Where is it? Right, so that you're talking about Part A, have 2 student representatives. Can we just strike the word chosen and go with from every secondary school?
Well, then we still don't know how they're determined. So whose call is it?
Right. Have to a student. Sure. We'll have the director comment. Yes.
Through the chair, I believe if you read it as have 2 student representatives from every secondary school, then that leaves it open to the development of the terms of reference and process to determine whether that's going to be elected or appointed or what have you. But this secures that the sentiment is 2 students, if I'm understanding correctly.
Okay. So on the friendly amendment first, I'd like to ask the mover, Trustee K. McDonald, are you okay with those suggestions as friendly amendments to your original?
Yes, I am, Chair.
Okay, so on that motion itself, let us move to vote on. Trustee DeCruz, did you want to add something? I don't know, you have activated your. Did you speak on the original motion already?
No, we started to refer it right away.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Am I the only one speaking still?
On the original motion, well, we have friendly amendments we're going to move to voting on in a few seconds.
Oh, can I just speak on the motion, the final motion?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to speak on the amendments.
Okay, then let us deal with the amendments.
Deal with the amendments.
All right, so all the board members understand the friendly amendments that have taken place. Trustee McDonald, as the original mover, has agreed that she is in agreement with these amendments. We're going to, Trustee Lawton.
Thank you. Through Chair Cameron, I would like to say that I support the amendments, hoping that our student trustees agree with them. There's not supposed to be any cross-talking, but I asked the question and I looked at you, so thank you very much.
Okay, I think the nodding of the head was the silent signal of approval and agreement. Trustees, we're going to vote on the original motion with the friendly amendments as presented. All in favor of that motion, raise your hand. Carried. Thank you. That was 9.8. We're moving to 9.9, which is the notice of motion from Trustee K. McDonald regarding developing an anti-racism policy. Trustee McDonald, will you move this item to the floor? And do you have a seconder? And that is Trustee DeCruz seconding. Trustee McDonald, would you like to introduce your motion now? Okay. And thank you.
Somebody know. In preparation for explaining the rationale for bringing the motion forward, I examined many documents, policies, and research papers on racism. I spent a great bit of time examining the Government of Ontario Anti-Racism Act in 2017, formerly Bill 114, and Ontario's 3-year anti-racism strategic plan that was also rolled out in 2017. Most of what I envision for this board's anti-racism policy is contained within these documents. As a board, we need an anti-racism approach into the way the Peel District School Board develops policies and make decisions, as well as how we evaluate programs and measure and monitor the effectiveness of these programs. It is anti-Black racism that led the genesis of the We Rise Together action plan. This action plan supports Black male students and identifies systemic anti-Black racism as one of the reasons for the disproportionate outcomes and negative well-being of Black students. We at the Peel District School Board need a policy that ventures and centers on race. We need a policy that acknowledges the saliency of race as a determining factor in removing barriers. Anti-Black racism is often deflected to other issues. It's about poverty. It's about stereotypical single mom. It's about parents not being engaged. It's about ability. I would suggest that these deflections refuse to acknowledge the systemic barriers our Black students face. Every racialized group experiences the aforementioned phenomenons, but it's systemic racism and anti-Black sentiments that allow the negative outcomes for a specific group of students to go untethered. Such an initiative would require working together with all stakeholders, including staff, all union and federation groups, employee resource groups, parents, community partners, and most importantly, students. While I do recognize that the PDSB has an equity and inclusion policy, Policy 54, it is not enough. Policy 54 is a broad statement in recognizing the human rights of everyone, and as such, the board is supposed to ensure we are serving everyone. As stated in the background statement, this commitment confirms and upholds the principles enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Constitution Act 1982, the Ontario Human Rights Code, and the Education Act. This policy sets out the board's vision and goals for equity and inclusive education for all students, with reference to the 8 areas of focus as identified by Ontario's Equity and Inclusive Education Strategy. They are board policies, programs, guidelines, and practices, shared and committed leadership, school-community relationships, inclusive curriculum and assessment practices, religious accommodation, school climate and the prevention of discrimination and harassment, professional learning, accountability, and transparency. However, what is not explicit is the board's position on racism. This needs to be explicit. For example, We Rise Together Action Plan acknowledges forms of racism, anti-Black racism. We also have anti-Semitism, intergenerational trauma suffered by some members of our Indigenous community, and I will include Islamophobia as well as a form of discrimination of racialized students and staff. Work to address such issues need to be grounded in anti-racist policies. All anti-racist policies must be rooted in credible research. The initiative must be sustainable and have a public awareness component, and most importantly, we must have a mechanism to hold ourselves and all our employees accountable to provide a caring, safe, and nurturing environment for all students and staff, regardless of race, culture, and ethnicity. This process must engage not only members of racialized communities, but all pertinent stakeholders, as well as utilize the information gathered from our student census and workforce census. These censuses can be instrumental in shaping this anti-racism policy. Furthermore, we only need to look at stories in the media. We as a board are not absolved from these incidences, tweeting indiscretions, or other racist occurrences. To demonstrate our commitment to this work and the eradication of systemic racism in the PDSB, I would like to encourage all my colleagues to support this motion, and I would like to end with a quotation from the former Minister Couture responsible for anti-racism. We want to better understand the decisions and outcomes facing racialized communities. We are building on work done by many across Ontario. We are leveraging years of research and advocacy to implement an intersectional approach to systemic racism. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll open the floor for debate and comment from trustees. Please activate your button if you'd like to speak. This is Trustee DeCreux.
Thank you, Chair Cameron. First of all, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote on this motion. Thank you. I think this is very important work that we are doing here. Having an anti-racism policy to address systematic barriers that exist in our system is is crucial for us to continue to build on the work that we are doing. We are a board that has been very vocal and very courageous in our commitment to equity, inclusion, and I think the way we look at things from an equity perspective will be very different from the way we look at things from an anti-racist perspective, because they're really not the same thing. They're different approaches if you really think about it. I think having an anti-racism approach will help to developing policies, programs, training for students, anti-racism approach in our hiring practices. These are the things that we're talking about when we're talking about creating an anti-racism policy. So it's about creating this policy to serve as a framework from which we operate and from a framework from which we continue to do the work that we are doing and to build on that. So I'm very supportive of this motion. I'm very happy to second it, and I'm very encouraging of my colleagues to do the same thing. I think this is really important work. It's a step in the right direction, and I think I'm hopeful that the board will pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Andrews.
Through you, Chair Cameron. Although we don't have a specific anti-racism policy, and I'm not saying that I have a problem with a motion, but I would like to hear from administration on currently or specifically where anti-racism is addressed in our policies and operating procedures, because I would like to think that we do talk about it somewhere.
Chair, that's quite a promotion. Director Joshua.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'll begin, and then I'll ask my colleague, Associate Director Graywall, to give a little more detail. Just speaking to some of the places that I know that Trustee McDonald mentioned, we do have some overarching policies. Policy 51, our human rights policy, where you will see some specific language around basic principles, consideration of discrimination with respect to any negative effect on protective grounds are mentioned, and specifically race is mentioned. The other overarching policy, as was mentioned by Trustee McDonald, Policy 54, our equity and inclusive education policy, speaks to a commitment to excellence in education, supporting the equal opportunity for success for all students, and a commitment by the board and its staff to anti-oppression practices through identification and elimination of all types of discrimination as outlined in the Ontario Equity and Inclusive Education Strategy. And there is, again, specific reference to discrimination related to race. A third overarching policy is Policy 65, our Code of Conduct policy, again, alignment and specific reference to race, and also alignment to our human rights policy and our equity inclusive education policy. Policy 48 is our safe and accepting schools policy. You'll see a considerable amount of reference to a positive climate free from violence, harassment, verbal, physical, or sexual abuse, bullying, threatening, etc., and all centered around a number of areas. Discrimination based on race is clearly mentioned, as well as specifics around a number of other areas. And along with safe and accepting schools, we have a number of operating procedures, again, very much aligned and specifically reference discrimination based on race. You will see reference in a number of others. Most of our operating procedures and policies like digital citizenship, etc., align and make reference to our human rights policy and equity and inclusive education policy. Beyond that, if I may turn things over to Associate Director Graywall, she can give you some specifics on the historical as these policies were developed.
Excellent, thank you. So through you, Chair, just to build on what Director Joshua has just shared, a couple of comments. Our inclusive education policy prior to August 2010 was actually called anti-racism and ethnocultural equity. At that point, it was changed because the Ministry of Education would have released the new equity and inclusion strategy for the province, and we had to reflect certain things in our new policy, so that's the way it sits right now. The other piece I just wanted to kind of talk about, when the government changed and we moved to an equity and inclusive education strategy, the former government, and this current government has also continued with the Anti-Racism Directorate. So although there's an equity and inclusion branch with the ministry, they did introduce an Anti-Racism Directorate because they felt it was something more specific. Specifically, I think Trustee Kay McDonald talked about A Better Way Forward, which is the Ontario's 3-year anti-racism strategy for the province. And that talks about anti-Black racism, that talks about addressing Islamophobia, and it also talks about some of the recommendations within the Truth and Reconciliation, which is looking at First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples in terms of reconciliation there. I did a quick review of policies within the GTA board. So Dufferin Peel, I looked at York, Toronto, as well as Durham. Many of them have overall policies, and usually the anti-racism piece is built in. However, the Ontario Public Service does have a separate policy on anti-racism, which aligns really nicely with the introduction of A Better Way Forward. The only other final piece I wanted to just talk about is, you know, the whole notion of anti-racism comes under the umbrella of anti-oppression, which is a more critical approach to looking at equity and inclusion, where equity and inclusion generally will focus on some of the other pieces that Director Joshua had talked about. So the anti-racism policy really does, anti-racist policy would take it to that umbrella of anti-oppression. So it would be up to the board to see kind of where we want to sit in terms of that continuum.
Excellent. Go ahead, Trustee Andrus.
Okay, no, thank you, Director Joshua and Associate Director Graywell. No, I just, you know, like I said, we don't specifically have an anti-racism policy, and I wasn't saying that I was opposed to it, but I just wanted it raised that we, you know, we do have, and we have had stuff relative to anti-racism, that it's not something that we've, you know, completely ignored. So thank you.
Thank you. Another speaker is Trustee Crocker. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. So I would have said that I thought we pretty much had this covered before, but I found that Trustee Kay McDonald's introduction was very compelling. In fact, I'm going to ask her to send it to me. It's a barn burner. I don't see the harm in it, even if we think that we're covered on it. I think it's a very positive step at this stage in this board's life to reaffirm what we believe. I think it would be nice if it came out with a clear explanation of what we mean by anti-racism in this board and how we mean to walk the walk. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Yes, Trustee Sohi.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Kathy, Trustee McDonald, for bringing this up, and I think we really needed it. It's more specific that under the umbrella, I know in a lot of areas we do mention. It is really important to acknowledge and to move forward that we have, there are challenges faced by the students, the staff on the basis of race, and in the other areas, we are all working together to have the positive environment in our schools and the environment which is free of racism, and putting this policy in place. I think this aligns with our other priorities that strive towards the greater social equity, and I'm in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Trustee Chongkrian.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, on behalf of the students of Peel North, I'd like to speak in full support of this motion. Our board works towards creating an equitable, safe, and inclusive climate for all students, whereas this motion will serve as a catalyst to further creating this environment for our board. Our students appreciate the overarching policies that speaks to a commitment towards anti-oppression practices. However, our students would further benefit from a more specific directive towards anti-racism, and for that, we'd like to speak in full support for this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Lawton.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Cameron. I certainly agree with Trustee Crocker as far as the reaffirmation of our direction and of the work that we're doing. I appreciate the information from Director Joshua and Associate Director Graywall. I certainly, I don't understand what the policy is going to be. Be it resolved that we develop and implement an anti-racism policy. It is, to me, it's very broad, and I just question how it will play out. And that's a comment, not a question, because I understand that that's something that will, if the motion passes, will develop in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Trustee Oris Nadenova.
Through you, Chair, I'd like to echo the sentiments made by Trustee Chongrian by saying that as a representative of Peel South, I am fully in support of this motion because as a representative of many diverse students, I feel that it is excellent that this board is taking a firm stance on anti-racism because it will make our students feel more reaffirmed in their own identity, and it is a great position for our board to be taking, to be projecting to everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers to the motion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. There has been a recorded vote. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes.
Through you, Chair, I just wanted to highlight and thank everyone for the questions and the answers. But if you notice, like in the answers, a lot of them would say that you had overarching policy 51 with respect to protected grounds. It was not named specifically. For example, if you look at the equity and inclusive education policy, it's anti-racism policy, or is not named the word. And I think it's really crucial. One thing we've learned in the work that we're doing in the board with regards to our Truth and Reconciliation, with regards to We Rise, is naming discrimination. It's important to name it. Also, I would never suggest that the board is doing nothing, but I think that by having a policy that targets racism is very important. For my colleague who I could help by providing some examples of, like with York, we have the CRC anti-racism policy. We have Toronto Action Plan. There's also the Ontario has it's called Anti-Racism Act, and you can go through it. And I think it's very important for us to have a specific policy in place. And I trust that our staff will provide a well-written, well-researched policy for us to approve. As we continue on this journey with the We Rise Together Action Plan, addressing anti-Black racism, or we address the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action pertaining to education, it is imperative to make the board's position clear. Racism in any form towards Black students, Indigenous students, any racialized students needs solid policies and procedures so that all students feel that they are part of the commitment to inspire success, confidence, and hope. Our Black students have told us that they feel sometimes the message they receive they're inferior. Our Indigenous students have spoken to us. These students don't only complain about an individual, they also complain about the systemic piece. So I think it's important for us to develop a policy. It is a social fact that racism occurs and we all have biases. Unless we have an anti-racism policy that acts and commits to addressing any form of racism, in a meaningful way, the work of We Rise Together, as well as the Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action or any other anti-racism policy will not have the legitimacy it needs. The anti-Black racism policy should be built on equity and inclusion framework, focusing on the 8 areas that I mentioned before that was identified by Ontario's Equity and Inclusive Education Strategy, and it should be embedded. This is an opportunity for Peel to continue to be a leader in equity and inclusion. This is an opportunity to continue to be transformative. When we embark on the We Rise action plan, Tony Pontus said, we will be bold, we will be courageous and decisive. We will do what needs to be done. We will be unflinching in the response to the findings. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can move to the vote. Sorry about forgetting the closure there. I will call the vote. There has been a recorded vote requested. So all those in favor of the motion as presented to us in item 9.9, please stand. Can you activate your speaker, please? No. Oh, yeah.
Can you hear?
Now we can, yes.
Trustees Crocker, Benjamin, Kathy McDonald, Andrews, Davies, Lawton, Cameron, Sohi, McDonald, Noka, and student trustees Oris Naiden Nova and Chomkrian. So you've got a total majority. 10 yes, and 2 non-binding votes. So
Therefore, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Move to item 12. On the agenda, which is reports from the Ontario Public School Boards Association. 12.1 is OPSPA Connects from May 27th. Trustee Andrews, will you move these? And Trustee Sohi, will you second them? And are there any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Just before I move to the next item, I do want to introduce a principal from Harold Brathwaite Secondary School, Mr. Greg Byrne. Greg, wave to us, please. So this man has been here supporting his student, who is Trustee Chonkrian, and I should tell you that Trustee Chonkrian made a very specific point to me to say, could you please introduce my principal when you see him here? There is a fondness there for you, sir, that and a respect that I have heard many times throughout this year. And having met you and toured your school, I certainly understand why. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting your student and your students everywhere you go all the time, and for giving up tonight to join with us. Thank you, Greg. I sent Mr. Byrne a text, an email to say, please wait, don't leave until I can introduce you. And so now, if you have to go, we understand. But thanks, Greg. Item 13 is communications for action or receipt. We can take all of these together. These communications are here for us to receive at this time. 13.1 is a copy of a letter to the Minister of Education from the chair of the Lakehead District School Board regarding the recent policy changes and shifts in budget priorities. 13.2 is a copy of the letter to the members of Provincial Parliament, Peel Region, PC Caucus in response to an open letter to all directors of education, trustees, and Peel residents dated May 17th. Trustee DeCroo, will you move receipt of these, please? And Trustee Crocker, will you second them? Thank you. And are there any comments or questions from trustees? Trustee DeCroo.
Thank you, Chair Cameron. This comment is specifically to 13.2, the letter to members of provincial government, it's been a long night, Provincial Parliament, Peel Region, PC Caucus, in response to the open letter to all directors of education, trustees, and Peel residents dated May 17, 2019. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues, and most especially Director Pereira, for providing a response and being able to put out that information in a very short period of time. I think that was very important. I also want to thank the chair for releasing a statement the day before after the minister's comments in the House. I appreciate the work that we have been doing to voice our concerns to our communities. And I appreciate the work that we have been doing to voice our concerns to the ministry. And we stand by that work. And it's truly unfortunate that until this day, there are until today actually, there are MPPs that are out there accusing us and putting out messaging that we are spreading misinformation, which we know is not the truth. The Premier recently announced that he will be but that he will not be moving forward with his proposed retroactive cuts to public health and Ontario municipalities. And I wonder if the board would consider starting a region-wide petition to reinstate the local priorities funding and decrease class sizes to help the Premier realize that the significant drop in his approval ratings has also been a result to the cuts that they've made to publicly funded education.
So is that a request for the board to move forward with more letter writing? Sorry.
Trustee Cameron, Chair Cameron, I think the time for letter writing is over.
And so your suggestion is something more
My suggestion
active?
is we start a petition, we collect signatures, we ask for something very specific. We want the local priorities grant back. We want the government to change their position on class sizes. We put that out there. We ask the residents in Peel region to support us and stand behind us. And it sounds like this government is willing to listen. They just don't want to listen to a bunch of politicians, which I understand. They want to listen to the people. So let's bring them the voice of the people. We could do that. I believe in us.
How about, well, you have a question on the floor. Maybe we could ask trustees what their thoughts are on that. And would anyone like to weigh in on the suggestion? Seeing none, how can we move forward? Would you like to move this to a committee? There is a question or a suggestion. Trustee K. McDonald.
I remember when we were, this is probably about 10 years ago, I think, or 8 years ago, when you had the fix the funding formula and you went through our school councils. I don't know if that's something we can do. It has to be parent-driven, because we had petitioned the support of school councils for fixing the formula. So I don't know if we can do the same, or is it too political to go through school councils? I don't know.
Okay, that's an idea. Trustee Lawton.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Cameron. I'm wondering if we can think about this and work on it. I don't, it's unfortunate we didn't hear about it before. Maybe it just came to you, in which case that's fine. It seems like, I think we might need a plan of some sort. And I would, it's not a motion, it's not a notice of motion, so I'm not quite sure what to do with it.
So just before we move to Trustee Crocker, there was we did take some action some time ago when we had a separate meeting after a suggestion had been on the floor. We took it to, not that night, but over time, we had a concrete discussion about next steps. We met with the director, and we came up with some pretty good strategy. That may be an option for us to think about, at which time you can articulate your plan and ideas, and it may be broader than just PIC or parent councils or community newspaper writing, but we can have the concrete discussion at another time. Trustee Crocker, yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. So and through you, my initial comment before Trustee DeCrube spoke was simply going to be that to all of us, including myself, who have said they don't read our mail anyway, they do read our mail. That said, I do agree with again with Trustee DeCrube that the time has come for some more concrete kind of action. I'm already on record as being in support of a partnership with parent groups and worker groups to put some more heat on the government. And I agree again with Trustee DeCrube that it seems that if you put some heat on this government, that you do get some action. And I will agree with her on this much too, that it was a great letter, and to thank Director Pereira and anybody who had a hand in it. And again, it wouldn't have been the letter I would have written, and that's a good thing. My letter would have been a lot shorter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, Trustee DeCrube, before I activate, if you could think about agreeing to an opportunity to move this to another venue where we can put all of our thoughts together, we can hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for that. I think it would be a great opportunity for us to sit down as a board and talk about. I have a lot of ideas. I'm not married to any one in particular, but I'm happy to have that fulsome discussion with the board. I just wanted to. I didn't want to bring a motion because it would have gotten political, and really this is about the voice of our students and the voice of our schools and the voice of our parents and our residents, and really giving them the opportunity. And you know what? Maybe we start a petition and no one signs it. Who knows? I don't think that's going to be the case, but who knows? But we have to give our residents and our parents an opportunity to voice their concerns to the government directly through us, because it sounds like this government is willing to listen if we do just that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll organize our discussion. Trustee Sohi?
Through you, Chair. Yesterday, there are a couple of MPPs who really targeted Peel District School Board and put the Facebook post and the other post on the social media, and I got a lot of calls and emails about the explanation on that, which is really a misleading, and it says that we are misleading the public by saying, although in the news it says that the funding is more than the previous years. So I think it's really important for us to educate the community, educate our constituents and the parents, because parents are concerned. They're saying, you are saying that they are misleading, and they're openly saying that the Peel District School Board is misleading, and they put everyone's name, phone number, and address to make everyone feel that it's really, we are misleading. So I think there is a time we have to, I'm not sure how we can discuss, we need to clarify this to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things we know about Director Pereira is she works in the world of facts. And so we're not surmising or guessing at things. And when she helps us write letters to mobilize our position, it's about factual information. So this could be our good next step for us to talk together. I appreciate the idea, Trustee DeCrube. And if everyone is okay, we will move forward now. We were at 13.2. We had receipt moved and seconded. Everyone in favor? Point 13, Agenda 13, Item 13, 1 and 2. Item 14. 14.1 is a response to questions asked by Trustee Crocker at the May 14th board meeting regarding countermeasures against hate crimes. Trustee Crocker, will you move this item? Trustee B. McDonald, will you second it? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? Trustee Crocker?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I would first of all like to thank those in the Director's Office, Associate Directors Dowling and Graywall, for their work on this, Superintendent Mark Harmon, who is in the room, and Superintendent Adrian Graham, who's not in the room, but with whom I spoke earlier and relayed my thanks. We just got this, of course, on Friday, so I don't know whether my trustee colleagues have had a time to had the time to read this. It's several pages. On the face of it, it's very impressive. There's lots going on in equity and inclusive education. To echo a phrase that I heard Associate Director Graywall use in another context, there's lots of room in the curriculum for this. Unfortunately, the way curriculums tend to be built is that they give you a long list of things. and you don't have to choose them all. So my comment would be, if you look at page 111, we have social justice courses, HSE 4E and HSE 4M. I had to look up the course code because I'd never heard of them before, and I was the head of a Canadian and World Studies department. So I'm a little bit cynical as to how many schools would be actually offering these courses, and I'd be really interested to learn of those who did offer them, how many of them had to cut them in the face of recent staffing cuts. And I talked about that with Superintendent Graham, and we agreed that a good time for that discussion would be after reorg in the fall. The civics curriculum describes some civic issues of local, national, and/or global significance. That's about as global as it gets. And then there's a long list of things: bullying in schools, violence in the community. There's even casino development in there, water quality, Aboriginal rights, human rights related to racism, child labor. It goes on and on and on, but it doesn't really talk about hate crime. And so again, I would question whether we ever learn anywhere in a curriculum what constitutes hate crime. On the bright side, a lot of students do take grade 11 law. It's always been a very popular social science course, and I don't know how you could teach this course without at least touching on major issues around human rights and hate crime, and certainly for grade 11 students, it's something that really resonates. So that's a real positive here. When you get to page 115, our board perspective on empowering modern learners, obviously all good. That's all great. I would like to see how it's reflected in the classroom, however. Finally, when you look at page 116, the climate perspective, there's some very strong stuff here, particularly our partnership with Peel Regional Police. It's all good stuff. I'm just not convinced that it's overt enough. And if you'll indulge me, Chair, just in the media today, there was a story about a man who was told he should get himself another name because he had a Jewish name, and they were going into battle at D-Day, and if he got captured with his Jewish name, he wouldn't have long to live. So he changed his name to Maxwell, and he's been Maxwell for the last 75 years. He's still alive. D-Day survivor, which amazes me because he was one of those who went in with the gliders before they actually stormed the beaches. So they had orders to try not to shoot anybody and make a lot of noise, but to be slitting throats and bayoneting people. And he survived all that, and he's still here. And what he says, I'll have to paraphrase it for the sake of time, is that he lived through the 1930s. He was Jewish in Austria. And he lived through the war, and he's lived through the last 75 years. And he says that the decade that we're living in right now reminds him more of the 1930s than any other time in history. And that, Chair, is very, very sad. The article, which I read off CP24, so I guess that means it's CTV, does give some data in support of that. And I'll finish with this, Chair. StatsCan documented a 47% rise in police-reported hate crimes between 2016 and 2017. 47%. With incidents involving Jews surging 63% and coming second only, not to our surprise, living in Peel, to the 151% spike in attacks against Muslims. This is real stuff, Chair. I'm going to reiterate, as I did 2 weeks ago, that the perpetrators of hate crime were once students in schools. The victims of hate crimes were once students in schools. We have a duty, we have a moral responsibility to educate children about what hate crimes are, where they exist. It wasn't just something that happened in Germany in the 1930s and 40s, that it's an ever-present danger and imperils our modern world in the 21st century. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Might I suggest that you continue to have that discussion with Superintendent Graham, and if that regarding the information that we have and where things fit, and if you are not comfortable that you don't understand where they fit, you can bring that back to the table for all of us to be part of that discussion again? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So this item was moved, seconded. Are there any other speakers to it? This is 14.1. Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. Through your chair, I was actually going to speak about this at the comment section, but I just wanted to let everyone know, if they weren't aware, that the the headline in the Toronto Star, May 13th, judge awards Paramount Fine Foods owner $2.5 million in defamation lawsuit against online provocator. And it's no other than Kevin Johnston, who I'm sure most of us are familiar with. And again, just touching on the whole hate crime initiative. And I remember, I'm sure for the trustees that were here in the last term, would have seen the ugly side of what hate does to people. So thank you, Trustee Crocker, for bringing this forward. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, this is here for our receipt. All in favor? That was 14.1. 14.2 is response to the question asked by Trustee K. McDonald at the May 14th board meeting regarding the possibility of having evening identification, placement, and review committee meetings. Trustee K. McDonald, will you move this item, please? Thank you. Trustee DeCruz, will you second it? Okay, are there any questions or comments from trustees? Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. Through your chair, I have not been able to contact the parents the parent that asked me about to ask this question, but I'd just like to thank Dr. Moynihan and to thank Associate Director Greywall for this answer, and I will forward it to the parent. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Why don't we just make everyone a doctor here tonight? And
but he is actually a doctor, a PhD doctor.
Oh, right. Dr. Moynihan is one, right? So this is here for our receipt. All in favor? That is carried. 14.3 is a response to the question asked by Trustee K. McDonald at the May 14th board meeting regarding policy and protocol upon the death of a staff member or student and for community involvement. Trustee K. McDonald, will you move this item?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And Trustee Davies, will you second it, please? Thanks. Are there any questions or comments from trustees?
Again, I'd just like to thank Mark Harmon, Superintendent, and for Associate Director Wendy Dowling for this. Thank you very much. And again, I have not had an opportunity to pass on this information to my parents, but thank you, because this came from different parents. So thank you for this, and I will forward the information. Thank you.
Excellent. This is here for our receipt. All in favor? It's carried. Item 15, are there any reports from trustee representatives on councils or associations? Trustee Andrews.
Through you, Chair Cameron, although it is in 12.1 because of the deadline coming up, I just want to remind trustees that the Congress 2019 National Trustees Gathering on Indigenous Education and the Ontario Public School Boards Association AGM, the early bird registration ends June 14th and the hotel cutoff is June 10th. So anyone that's interested in attending that, needs to book in. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others, we'll move on to item 16. Are there any comments or questions from board members? I will start with our student trustees. Trustee Chonkrian, your principal is still here. and you have the floor. If you can get it activated. There you go.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. I'd just like to start off, Mr. Byrne, you'll be at the end, best for last. Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, I'm so very excited to invite all trustees and board staff to elevate our annual Peel-wide Bhangra and Hip Hop competition this Thursday, May 30th, hosted at Mississauga Secondary School. I have my money ready. We hope you'll be able to extend the invitation to your constituents and are looking forward to having all of your support and to also support all of our students dedicated to the performing arts, which is another vision that we had for the Elevate Committee this year. We just also like to comment on the fact that this past weekend, Trustee Orisnita Nova and I represented the Peelschools School Board at Osta ACO's annual general meeting. Over the course of the 4 days, professional development and networking took place. We met with our Minister of Education to discuss our future in education, along with releasing our multi-year strategic plan titled The Student's Vision for Education. Trustee Orisnita Nova and I wanted to take the time to thank our board for giving us the opportunity to better represent our constituents. And finally, Mr. Byrne, I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with our principal during my term as student trustee. Mr. Byrne has always made it his mission to welcome my new ideas with open doors and made my term as a student trustee into a very supportive one. Mr. Byrne, your efforts are truly commendable, and I thank you for being the principal that all of our students at Harold Brathwaite look up to, continuing to inspire success, confidence, and hope in each student. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. How about that, Dr. Byrne? That's a beautiful. Thank you. Student Trustee Oris Nadenova.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm not sure if this is quite out of order, but I'd like to reiterate our thank yous to the rest of the board for approving our motion for Student Senate. We really appreciate all the support that all of you have in seeking student voice when making important board decisions, because decisions that affect us should not be made without any input from us, as Director Joshua said earlier today. Secondly, yes, forgive me, Student Trustee Chongrian mentioned that we just came back from our annual general meeting, and we'd also like to reiterate our thanks to our board for sending us, but also to OSACO for providing the best professional development for student trustees in our province, and for providing us with opportunities that we could have never fathomed to have been given, because they are such a wonderful organization and we had an excellent time. I'm not sure if Student Trustee Chongrian mentioned this, but we actually heard from Jagmeet Singh speak a little bit about the NDP's policy, which we thought was a little bit interesting. And Student Trustee Chongrian actually had the honor of introducing him, so I am very proud of her. And lastly, we will be hearing about the results of many schools in Peel South cancer drives and charity weeks this week. So perhaps at our next board meeting, I'll be able to highlight them specifically, because I'm sure the results will be fantastic, and I am very excited to be reporting on them in the future. Thank you.
Wonderful. Trustee Crocker. Trustee Benjamin? Yes.
Through you, Chair, I'd just like to share some information. I attended the opening session of the Peel Indigenous Students Gathering on 16th May at the UTM campus, Mississauga. About 125 secondary and 225 elementary students attended the two-day event. Jay Sewell from the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation was the keynote speaker. Jay is a self-taught native multimedia artist and political activist. He urged the students with a passion for something to learn in the University of YouTube. Jay has a unique style. He started out as a tattoo artist and then moved on to painting. Jay gives an indigenous twist to iconic movie posters. For example, the Terminator became the Terminative, and also paints one-of-a-kind skateboards with indigenous themes. He uses his art to start conversations to create change. There were a lot of workshops on that day, and I'm quite sure that the students benefited through these experiences. I also attended the Peel Student Nutrition Volunteer Appreciation event of the YMCA. The coordinator provided some statistics that was mind-boggling, and I'm just going to name one or two. The YMCA provides schools in the Peel region an average of 19,237 meals per day, and about 14,800 students need a breakfast or lunch. The total volunteer hours put in by both adults as well as students is 132,480. The reason why I brought this up is because another school, and my ward has a lot of schools at the bottom of the SVI index. So another school, Nahani Way, I have my $2, has introduced a pilot breakfast program just before the end of the school year for 6 weeks. And many of the teachers spend their lunch hours packing packets of carrots, cereal, and cheese for the students. The school is now funding this project on its own and looking for community sponsors. The Rotary Club has promised some funding in September. And Nahani Way is looking to local businesses as well as the PLF. What the reason why I brought this is about my concerns about the poverty. The information provided in the SVI 2017 shows more than half the elementary schools and the one high school in my ward, especially the Malton area, are high on the list of most vulnerable students. What can we as a board do to help our most vulnerable students? And is this SVI 2017 published by the board being distributed among other stakeholders in the community, like to the governments, the provincial governments, etc., so they know about the problems faced by the students, about the level of poverty, etc. And I would like to say a big thank you to the Board Research and Accountability Department for all the information that you have provided. This is a very useful resource, and I'm still trying to figure out the information that has been provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee K. McDonald?
Thank you.
Yep.
Sir. Through your chair. Just 3 quick things. I first wanted to thank our 2 amazing student trustees. Thank you for the work that you put in and all the research. And thank you, I mentioned before, to Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Harmon, Superintendent Harmon, for the work that they have done with you. And Pete is better because of you, and I just wish you all the best. I know you're not leaving now, but I'm just so proud of you. You guys rock. Also, I just wanted to mention that I had the chance to visit Balmoral's Art Display at Pama, which is our Peel Museum, and it was just outstanding, the work that was displayed by our students. And just for me, the joy was just seeing the parents' joy of seeing their kids' work displayed. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to the entire staff and the art teachers and anyone who made that possible. And thanks to Pama also for partnering with us. As well as, it was so interesting, last weekend we had 2 fun fairs on Saturday, and well, it poured. So one school brought the fun fair into the school, and another school, it was postponed until Sunday, and they were both it was amazing just to see 2, solutions to the same problem, and it worked. It was wonderful. So I'd just like to thank all the staff at Morton Way Public School and at Sir John A. Macdonald. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Andrews, Trustee Davies, Trustee Lawton. Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Cameron, I just wanted to mention that I was honored to attend the wrap-up celebration of Just Ask, our program for students that was begun by the late Vice Principal Dave Bodonovic, who was our education champion for 2018-2019. There were several of us there. Associate Director Dowling, Associate Director Graywell was there, Superintendent De Silva was there, Trustees Marchant and Sohi were there, but most importantly, the students were there. It was held at, I hope I have a loony, West Credit Secondary School. The cafeteria was full of students who were, first of all, the rotunda was full of students presenting their projects that were developed during the year based on the idea that that Dave had. It's something, the first time he told me about it, he said, it doesn't seem like much the first year because there were only 6 students involved, but we talked about the fact that 6 becomes 60 and 60 becomes 600. And while we're not at 600 yet, they were certainly at more than 60. There were many educators there, many principals, vice principals, teachers who were, and support staff who were supporting the kids. It just really was that reminder that I think we all need every once in a while that it's really about the kids. That's what's important. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Trustee DeKroob. Trustee B. McDonald. Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to say last week I got to share in 2 school celebrations. First one at Oak Ridge has celebrated their 50th. It was awesome. It was a very interesting tidbit of news that they opened the school up so kids wouldn't cross the QEW. So I guess kids were crossing the QEW back in '69.
Thanks, Kathy.
And then Clarkson High School had their 50th on Saturday, a great celebration. I think it's the largest high school 50th turnout I've been at, and everyone was did a fabulous job there. And it was another interesting story there. The school, there was a strike back then, Randy, and they couldn't build the school in time because there was a bricklayer problem. So Clarkson actually started going to Lorne Park. So they did a morning shift for Lorne Park and an afternoon shift. And because Clarkson was so muddy and would come to the school and bring mud, they were nicknamed the Mudders, and that's been stuck with them for 50 years. Anyway, it was a great event, and the staff and the alumni did amazing jobs at both schools.
Nice celebrations. Trustee Sohi.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the organizers of ICANN Games. It was games of the special needs students organized by Louise Arbor and the Larkspur, hosted by Louise Arbor. Great opportunity where special needs students were engaged with special needs students from other schools. It was a great way to celebrate them, and the best thing that I witnessed was the high school students of Louise Arbor helping them and engaging with them, and I think this is how we can bring this sense of gratitude in our students and put them on the right path. Another thing I would like to mention, thank you, Trustee Lawton, for mentioning Just Ask. I think it's an amazing opportunity for our students to have those leadership skills and come up and talk about what they want to see in their schools and what are the hurdles that they have. Another thing I want to mention, the road safety campaign that was launched by Peel Regional Police at Eagle Plains Public School last week, and it was wonderful to have literally more than 30 plus police officers engaging with our students and talking about the road safety tips. Thank you again to our student trustees for bringing the voice of all the students to our table and for all the amazing work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 17 is public question period. Are there any questions from the public? Mrs. Soplet, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Oh.
Excellent, loud and clear.
Okay. I was looking ahead into June on my calendar and noticed that the June 3rd regular meeting of the Peel Board has been canceled, and I'm wondering if there was a special reason, since I don't think even though the weather hasn't been good, I don't think we're getting snow in June.
No, but the reason would be it would be less than a week later from today. It was back-to-back meetings, week to week, which we don't do normally. And so when administration saw that the agenda would not have many items on it at all, they simply deferred and suggested that we move everything to the final meeting of the school year, which is Wednesday, June the 19th. So that may be a little bit busier meeting, but the next one would not have been good use of everyone's time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Further business, item 18, not seeing any. 19 is the adoption of the in-committee reports. Vice Chair Lawton, will you put them on the floor? Thank you. Trustee Andrews, will you second them? And thank you. All in favor? And adjournment. Ladies and gentlemen, just before we move to adjourn, thank you to everyone here for choosing to participate in public education in Peel. We will be back here for our next regular meeting of the board on Wednesday, June the 19th. Trustee DeCrube, will you move to adjourn? Thank you. Will you second that, Trustee Davies? Good job, everyone, tonight. Well done. All in favor? Thank you. Carried.